definitely help to start by clarifying, because I think a lot of people and companies use various terms, but at a high level, most companies have two different types of sales forces. So there's the field sales model, and that's kind of your traditional method where you have, a traditional face-to-face model. You have a specific set of people who are based physically in geographies aligned to a set of accounts and territories, meeting with clients face-to-face and in person. And companies also have inside sales teams as well. So that's where you have the sellers who are kind of in a centralized hub, an inside sales hub per se, or a digital sales hub. And they primarily engage with clients through digital methods. So phone, email, video, for example. And I think that depending on the company's maturity level in their digital sales, they might call it something different. So some people might refer to it as a telesales motion or inside sales motion or virtual sales. That's what Cisco calls it, or digital sales, which is what we call it at Microsoft and also at IBM. So I think many companies are starting to kind of adopt the digital sales naming convention because it's also, just a little bit more sexy, I guess. And I think it's more representative of what the organization actually does. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think there's been a lot of shifts in the field of digital sales, and there's been a lot of that actually accelerated by the pandemic, even in the past year alone. Well, back in the day, of course, selling remotely isn't a new concept, right? I mean, companies have used telemarketing approaches for decades. I mean, think about how many calls you would have when you were having a family dinner and people just calling you left and right. But I think most people would think of inside or digital sales motions like that as a bit more of the old school selling model. And, people would sort of imagine you would walk into a call center and you'd see lines and lines of people just sitting in a row, smiling and dialing, phone call after phone call. It was the spray and pray mentality. It's like you find your phone book, you find your white pages, you start going down the list, see what sticks, and try to turn those into opportunities in sales. And it was almost more like the telemarketing approach. I think that's why a lot of companies have shifted to calling their inside sales teams digital sales, because inside can kind of have that connotation. And as a result, people who are also sellers or who are looking for jobs, they might not be as attracted to inside sales as a profession as they would for digital sales. So, you also didn't really have some of the rich insights that you did back in the day with some of the inside sales motions, because for decades, it was honestly more just like calling a list. And it was almost always scripted. It was almost always focused on selling some of those lower ticket items. And it almost always never included multiple touch points. It was kind of the do or die mentality. It's like you would call people and you would see what would stick, as I said. And if they weren't interested, you would just sort of move on to the next opportunity. So that's kind of what I think the old school version of inside sales was. Now it's obviously become a lot more advanced and evolved. It varies depending on the company, but I would say by and large, especially at large enterprise tech companies like IBM, gone are the days of kind of traditional inside sales cold calling. I think now digital sales has been a way for companies to reach prospects at scale, but also a chance to really maintain much more personalized relationships, because now you're so informed about what a client has done in the buyer journey. So a lot of companies have adopted scoring methodologies. So what we do at IBM, anytime a client does something, anytime they interact with IBM, so that could be downloading a white paper, going to a webinar, participating in a trial, coming to a face-to-face event, all of those things. I mean, we try to keep track of what those are because it signals a client's interest. And we know when a client's done XYZ things, that sort of might mean that they're ready to potentially buy something or they're ready to have a conversation about something. And so we've now really equipped our sellers with a lot of those insights at their fingertips so that when they call clients, they know about all of that. They can have a much more personalized conversation that's actually tailored to what a client is looking for versus just kind of arbitrarily doing the spray and pray mentality. And I think customer buying preferences over the past several years have already shifted toward digital engagement. I think digital transformation is kind of enabling some of this analysis like never before. And, there's been a lot of investments in machine learning and AI capabilities to make sure some of those scoring methodologies and things that I've mentioned are getting better and better. And that helps companies actually tailor their offering. So if we know somebody has done certain things, you might say, see you're interested in this. We actually have an offer right now, or we have a promotion, or we'll give you a free trial, or whatever it might be. So I think because of those reasons, we will start to see more and more companies shifting toward digital sales versus traditional field sales models. It obviously leads to cost efficiencies. It allows you to connect with clients at scale. And as I mentioned, I think the pandemic is just accelerating some of those shifts. I mean, there's numerous studies out there, but even pre-pandemic, there was a study by InsideSales.com, and they said the percentage of time spent by field sellers selling remotely has actually increased by 89% over the past 4 years. So that means even pre-pandemic, field sellers were already primarily engaging with their clients via digital methods, and clients don't really care as much about having somebody physically fly to them or travel to them or whatever it might be. You can actually still have just as insightful of a conversation via phone.
That's crazy. I mean, I remember the statistics. I think it was, I couldn't remember if it was Gartner Force or one of them releasing some statistics on, you probably know this better than I do, there's no one buyer journey for actually getting to a buying cycle with the customer. They can go through a million different channels and a million different ways to get there, to actually becoming a customer. And being receptive to all of those signals is really where you separate the really great digital inside sales teams today versus, to your point, some of maybe the more archaic ones, or ones that are looking at every single contact and every lead uniformly, right, or on the equal playing field.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's numerous studies, as you said, but I mean, I just read something recently by Serious Decisions. They said that 60% of the buyer's journey is already done digitally. CEB Global said that for B2B buyers, they're typically 57% of their way already to knowing what they want to buy before they even talk to a human or engage with a website or whatever it might be. So I think a lot of clients and prospects are already just starting to figure out ways to self-serve. They do so much research. They have so much information at their fingertips that when a digital seller's involved, their expectation is that you're sort of informed to some level as to what they need.
It's no question about it. The amount of information out there is not decreasing. So buyers are showing up to the table ready to go and already understanding that there's a fit there. Do you see any I guess, ACV gap there between digital sales? You talked about the old telesales back in the past, and certainly is more transactional in nature, smaller ticket items, I would assume. You're not going to try to one call close a massive server with an IT pro, right? But do you see any line where inside sales or digital sales can't really perform at the same level as field sales, or is there no distinction at this point?
Well, I'm a bit biased, but I would say no. I think what I've personally been able to experience, having helped build digital sales teams at Microsoft and now helping to modernize and evolve and transform and take one to the next level at IBM, I found that size of company actually doesn't matter. And a lot of times people think, we have to do our segmentation in that way. You have to have the biggest of the biggest accounts covered by face-to-face, and then digital covers everything else. In certain instances, that could be the case. I mean, if you have 500 clients or 1,000 clients or whatever it might be who really make up the majority of your revenue, you might want to have a face-to-face model. But I found in the digital segment, you can get a lead for a Coca-Cola or a Walmart or whatever it might be through a digital method and still close a pretty large deal. So one of the things my team does, I have a team of about 350 digital sales development team members in my organization. One of the things they do is they manage all of the inbound coming through from live chat. So on the IBM.com web pages, if you go there, you click chat with a sales representative, that's my team. You'd be surprised. I mean, it's not just mom and pop shops. It's not just startups. It's not just 500-person organizations. You do see sometimes the Coca-Colas and the Walmarts of the world coming through those channels. And so I think that's why It's so important to invest in the right enablement and training for digital or inside sellers or whatever you call them at your organization. Sometimes I found that a lot of those investments go into skilling up the field sales resources. And the reality is, with all of these shifts, you've got to actually be doing the opposite. I mean, digital sellers are typically the first line of communication that a client will ever have with your company. And so that can really make or break the experience if you don't have a lot of enablement on the front end of the spectrum. I think we'll probably have a lot of hybrid models. Like I said, I think we're gonna continue to see more and more investments in digital sales capabilities. I think that companies are going to need to continue to invest in some of the AI and machine learning that I mentioned today. I mean, some companies have pretty sophisticated modeling, but I think that's going to just get even better and better as these models learn. We'll be able to really figure out how do you tailor the right offerings and the right messaging and all of those things to the people that you're talking to. Right now, I feel like, some companies have barely scratched the surface. So as we get more sophisticated, I think we'll be able to take more of a data-driven approach to engaging with clients. But a lot of people ask me, do you see a world where you don't need sellers because everything is so automated and so self-serve and so easy? My answer is actually no. I think there will always, maybe not always, but for the foreseeable future, I think there will be some layer of human interaction. I think clients are just not ready to go to a fully self-serve model, especially you think about a portfolio like IBM. We have a very complex portfolio. We have a lot of offerings across cloud and AI and storage and services. And I think those things, you need somebody to sort of help pull together the story and put a bow around it. So I think we'll continue to see digital sales models. I think we'll continue to see investments in the data and the capabilities and the tools and making sure that sellers have all the tools at their fingertips to make it easier for them to do their job with all of those insights, as I said. So not only understanding kind of what a client has done in their journey, but information about them, having that all in one-stop shop for our sellers. So you click a lead and you say, oh, this is integrated with this person's LinkedIn. I know they went to this school. I know they have these passions around these things that can help them really tailor their messaging when they reach out to people. But finally, the last thing I'll say is I think that despite needing to have a human sales force in some capacity, I do think we are going to see a big influx in people investing in digital platforms. That's not to say that we'll have an entirely humanless, digital experience. As I said, I'm just saying I think it's really important to give customers that option. And the reason I say this is because of some of the data I had quoted earlier. I mean, there's numerous studies that show that clients really, they want that. 84% of CEOs and VPs, according to IDC, they use social media to make their purchasing decisions, and they do it themselves and go to a marketplace to be able to do that. So I think giving clients kind of a frictionless digital experience where they can sort of streamline their engagement with you is going to be something that we see a lot more of moving forward. I mean, I think as I said, we'll see more and more companies sort of shift the mix between their digital and their field. So I think you'll probably see more digital, less field moving forward. A lot of big companies have already moved to that kind of a model. But I think it'll be interesting to just sort of see on the inside side what the expectations are of sellers. I think we want them to be more technical, for example. One of the things that I think we'll see less of moving forward is the number of sellers or the number of sales roles. Because, I think about the IBM experience, we have a number of sellers. You have kind of an SDR type of role, then you have a digital seller who you pass to, then you could either, pass the lead to a business partner to help close, maybe a field seller if it's a managed account, maybe another digital seller. You can leverage technical sellers to help you craft a deal. There's customer success resources. So when you look at the end-to-end picture, most companies have a pretty similar footprint. You have a number of siloed sellers who do come together as an account team to try to create the best possible experience for clients. But I believe that moving forward, you'll probably invest in one. How do you have one person who is equipped and enabled to take a deal from 0 to 100%, and leveraging the right resources, of course, but just having kind of one person who's the quarterback. And that's why we're so deeply invested in scaling up some of our SDR reps, for example, making sure that they are getting the same exact technical training that some of their other selling counterparts might be getting. Everybody across the company, for example, has to do journey to cloud training to really understand our hybrid cloud offering, since that's sort of the future of our IBM strategy. So I think it's getting really crystal clear about what is your strategy, the offerings, and then making sure that you're sort of figuring out what's the most optimal way to just think about your sales force to be able to support that strategy. And a big piece of that, I think, is going to be kind of paring down the number of disparate sales resources that you have and trying to make sure that you have more of a holistic strategy.